Welcome everybody. Guess who's back? Oh hi Anita. Long time no seeing you. You were busy, right? No, you weren't. When did you make the last Trope vs. Woman video? In September? Do you need 5 months to make a new Trope vs. Woman video? I mean, I know that is not the only video you made. But you got money for this. Never mind. I won't criticize you for this. There will be plenty other materials. Let's see what you brought me today. It's going to be as long as less than 7 minutes. Really? Really? I mean, I shouldn't complaining, you just made my job easier. But 7 minutes? Is that the best you can do? How much time, how much research do you need? I mean quote unquote research do you need for this video? You got money for this. Fuck it, it is not my money. Let's hear Anita.
If you want to get to know a character, learn about their interests, goals, or desires, their butt is probably not going to give you that information. It won't tell you much about who they are or what they're thinking or feeling at any given time.
Unlike the color of your hair, which already gave us everything what we need to know about you.
But video game designers often choose to put tremendous focus on the butts of certain characters while going to almost absurd lengths to avoid calling attention to the butts of others.
Do you know that Lara Croft is an adventure? She is jumping, she is searching for treasures, she is swimming, she is climbing. This type of activity would be very uncomfortable if she would wear, for example, a trench coat. But this guy, Eden Pierce, is a hacker, an outlaw. Of course he wants to hide himself, and therefore he dress accordingly.
These carefully crafted choices developers make about camera angles and clothing significantly impact how players think about and relate to these characters.
No, they don't. Maybe a little bit, but not significantly. The dress of the character is one of the less important factors when it comes to gaming.
Third-person games with female protagonists typically display those characters in a way that gives players a full-body view. A classic example of this is the original Tomb Raider games, which are presented from a third-person perspective wherein protagonist Lara Croft's entire body is visible. In these early Tomb Raider games, Lara's butt is typically right in the center of the screen, a camera orientation which, along with the sexualized clothing the designers choose to outfit her in, places a tremendous amount of emphasis on that part of her body.
We barely passed the first minute, and Anita already demonstrated that she is not a true gamer. If she would know that in a third-person view, you can check your surrounding better, which is kinda important in an action-adventure game like Tomb Raider. But Anita, I'm going to show you a few screenshots from other third-person shooters starring man characters. And holy shit, you can see his entire body.
In dozens of third-person games with playable female characters, the character's butt is brought to the forefront, and that's where the player's focus is directed. In Batman Arkham City, for instance, the player's gaze is drawn to Catwoman's behind, which is emphasized by her costume and exaggerated hip sway.
Because there is nothing similar in the comics. No, not at all. No, she don't dress like this.
The ceremony! The Sisterhood will never forgive me if I am late.
Golden Axe Beast Rider makes extremely sure that we notice the protagonist's butt just before we take control and start playing.
You know, this picture almost reminds me to the famous skin from the movie The Graduate. But that is a really good movie, and this game is terrible.
And here in Tomb Raider Underworld, to say that Lara's butt is being emphasized would be putting it mildly.
Incredible. The carvings are clearly similar to early Germanic design, but this is far older than the 5th century.
And this happens all too
You
often.
can't miss it.
Anita, did you realize that at least half of these skins, you were the one who moved the camera?
Contrast the way that women's butts are emphasized with the sometimes absurd lengths taken to cover up or hide men's butts. If some of this footage looks jerky, that's because in some games, trying to get a glimpse of male characters' butts can feel a bit like wrestling with the camera. Common ways men's butts are hidden are by preventing the player from seeing below the character's waistline, or employing a more over-the-shoulder camera angle, which has the added benefit of keeping the character's butt safely out of the frame. The most amusing solution is to simply include a cape, tunic, long coat.
First of all, there are TPS games where the emphasis is more on the shooting and it's not on the platforming. Second, as I showed you earlier, there are games where you can see the butt of a man too.
Or very conveniently positioned piece of tattered fabric, which actively prevents the player from getting a clear or sustained look at the protagonist's butt. For the purposes of this video, I tried to get a glimpse of Batman's rear end, but it's as if his cape is a high-tech piece of Wayne Industries equipment designed to cover up his butt at all costs.
Anita, at first, you just cherry-picked. Now you are lying. In Batman Arkham City, you can unlock costume where Batman hasn't got a cape, and you can see his butt, if that's what you wish for.
To jokingly refer to this aspect of a male character's costume as the strategic butt covering. Of course, not all games with male protagonists keep the character's butt obscured or out of frame like these games do. The real issue is one of emphasis and definition.
Wow, I'm surprised. You actually take my point.
A significant portion of third-person games with female protagonists call attention to those characters' butts in a way that's meant to be sexually appealing to the presumed straight male player.
Is it presumed, or it is the fact? Because most of the hardcore gamers are men. Of course there are female gamers. I know plenty of them. But that doesn't change the fact that the majority is men.
In this regard, the way that women's bodies are depicted is significantly different from the way that men's bodies are depicted. There are a few examples of male protagonists who are wearing clothing that calls attention to their butts, but for the most part, men's butts, even when visible in the frame, are de-emphasized. Plenty of male heroes wear baggy pants or jeans, Uncharted's Nathan Drake among them, but nothing about his visual design or the jeans he's wearing encourages you to focus on his butt as some sort of defining aspect of his character.
For me, yes, it is not really appealing. But guess why? Because I am a man. For a woman, for example, I mean a non-feminist woman, it is probably appealing.
By contrast, this emphasis on the butts of female characters communicates to players that this is what's important. This is what you should be paying attention to. It communicates that the character is a sexual object designed for players to look at and enjoy. And by explicitly encouraging you to ogle and objectify the character, the game is implicitly discouraging you from identifying directly with her.
Here is the thing, Anita. Unlike you, gamers are not only interested in the surface. You only see the body of a female character because you think that is the only factor what is interesting. Gamers are not like this. Gamers care about the game, the gameplay, the game mechanic, the story, the character. And the character isn't going to be good because it looks good. But it is not going to be a bad character because she is sexually appealing. Gamers know that. You don't.
Strategic butt coverings and camera angles that obscure characters' rear ends are not an accident. They are a conscious decision made with great care, and the flip side of this is that designers often do the opposite when the protagonist is female. This difference in how male and female characters are framed often extends into the advertisements and box covers. Women's butts are front and center, and it's even become a depressing joke that their bodies are twisted and contorted in uncomfortable or unnatural ways so that their breasts and butt can be visible in the same shot. In contrast, when men are depicted from behind, there's great effort taken to cover up their rear end, often with other images or shadows.
Alright, I admit, some of these covers look stupid. But this is what called advertising. And the target demography is young men. And the easiest way to get the attention of a young man is by beautiful woman. Biology, Anita. Biology.
Of course, female characters can also be framed in ways that aren't objectifying. A good example of this is the episodic adventure game Life is Strange, in which the protagonist's butt isn't emphasized or centralized. The camera angles work in conjunction with the story to encourage us to identify with her as a human being.
Listen, Anita, I don't really care if you can see the butt of a character. It isn't important. It doesn't help or prevent me to empathize with the character. I can empathize with Max from Life is Strange. But I can also empathize with Lara. Maybe because her butt, it is not that important. Maybe it is important to you.
Sadly, the box art for the third-person action-adventure game Beyond Good and Evil emphasizes and sexualizes Jade's butt.
No, it is not. Just because you can see her rear, that doesn't mean she automatically sexualized.
The game itself, however, demonstrates that the Nathan Drake approach of outfitting a character in clothing that doesn't emphasize their butt and not having the camera center it or focus on it can work just as well to humanize female characters as it does for male characters.
If I recall it correctly, in Beyond Good and Evil, which is a good game despite the fact Anita likes it, you can move the camera so you can see her butt anytime you want. Again, cherry picking.
So to be clear, the solution here is not to simply show more butts of male characters. Equal opportunity butt display is definitely not the answer. Rather, the solution is to de-emphasize the rear ends of female characters so that players are encouraged not to ogle and objectify these women, but to identify and empathize with them as people. This is not an impossible task, given that game designers do this all the time with their male characters. It's time they started consistently doing it with their female characters too.
Let me translate here. First of all, we should tell what an artist can or can do. Second, we have to cover every female characters in a burqa. In that way you can see her butt and therefore she will be not sexualized. Sadly, this isn't a far-fetched feminist idea. For feminism, you need three things: censorship, censorship, and censorship. But with that said, my video is over. If you enjoyed it, you can find the like and the subscribe button. I see you guys next time. I'm checking out.